If you really want to know how bad Katy Perry is, you will have to know which heights she touched and then fell to touch the rock bottom. Nothing happens for no reason. There are always a lot of blunders behind such terrible falls. Katy Perry was a #1 star who woke up as the queen of world music, but today she is flopped and defamed that no one even knows about her new album 143.
Katy Perry isn't a classic pop princess. She's a real tigress.
There were definitely two Katys. She treated us very well, was very gracious. Katy's personality is quite difficult to gauge because she does seem to exist.
To really understand how dramatically things shifted for Katy, you first have to appreciate just how high she once soared. At her peak, Katy Perry was a generational and most beloved pop star. She was racking up #1 hits like it was nothing, scoring massive commercial success with chart toppers like I Kissed a Girl and Teenage Dream. She was everywhere, and for a while it felt like nothing could stop her. But sometimes when you're at the top, the fall hits harder than you expect.
Katy's music is definitely pop. It's pure pop. Some people would say it's bubblegum pop. However, she's got some incredible songwriting talent and her vocals are actually very, very strong.
Here, it's necessary to have a sneak peek into her past. Katy Perry, initially known by her birth name Katy Hudson, first entered the scene in 2001 with a self-titled album that, unfortunately, went nowhere. The label that backed it, Red Hill Records, went bankrupt before the album could even be promoted properly. The sales? Disastrous. Only about 200 copies. You can't exactly launch a career from that, right? But then came her actual debut in 2008 under her new name Katy Perry, and that's when the magic happened. One of the boys dropped, and everything changed. It wasn't just a good album, it was a cultural moment. I Kissed a Girl hit #1, followed by Hot and Cold, which reached #3.
Because while her album, her first album, One of the Boys, was full of hit singles, it was I Kissed a Girl that turned her into a force to be reckoned with.
These hot pieces of music were defining an era of pop music. And let's not forget, back in those days, music wasn't streamed like it is now. People actually bought albums and singles on iTunes, which meant artists earned a lot more per sale than today's streaming model allows. Katy was cashing in during a time when having a platinum hit really meant something. When she topped the charts, she was actually selling music, which is a far cry from today's world of streaming services like Spotify, where a platinum hit looks a lot different. But remember, at that time, topping the charts was at least 10 times more difficult than today. It simply tells how great she was at that time. Then came her 2010 album Teenage Dream, which put Katy into a whole new stratosphere. Teenage Dream wasn't just a hit, it was a defining album. She became the second artist in history after Michael Jackson to have 5 #1 singles from one album. That's insane. The album itself went diamond in the US and was certified 6 times platinum in the UK. This album was a banger factory, producing hits like California Girls, Teenage Dream, and Firework. The hits just kept on coming, and Katy was on top of the pop world. Even with all this success, Katy's reign didn't last forever. She dropped a reissue of Teenage Dream a couple of years later, which included even more hits like Part of Me and Wide Awake, both charting at #1 and #2, respectively. By all accounts, she was unstoppable. But like with many stars, the constant climb doesn't always last. After Teenage Dream, she released Prism in 2013, an album that showed off her versatility by leaning into more dance-inspired sounds. Roar and Dark Horse were the big singles from Prism, and both went diamond, which is the highest certification possible. So, by 2013, Katy was untouchable. She had been on top for 6 solid years with a string of massive successes under her belt. You'd think that with those kinds of numbers and an army of dedicated fans, she could do no wrong. But that was exactly the point when things started to go downhill for the songstress. Fast forward to 2017. Katy's coming off a 4-year break, and the music landscape had totally changed. Streaming had taken over the industry, and artists who were easy to listen to in the background like Ed Sheeran and The Weeknd were starting to dominate. The way people consumed music had shifted, and the power of radio-friendly songs that Katy had mastered just wasn't as strong anymore. Here we come with Witness, her 2017 album.
Into this very out-of-touch effect that's so unfortunate because it's dragging her career down like an anchor, and she's not even aware that the ship is sinking. She doesn't want to admit that there's a...
The thing is, The Witness dropped into a completely different world. In 2017, political and social movements were booming, and fans were demanding their favorite celebrities take a stand. Katy, like many of her contemporaries, felt the pressure to speak up on issues like police brutality and political injustice. She released Chained to the Rhythm, a track that was widely seen as her attempt at political commentary, something we didn't typically associate with her earlier work. The song was fine, but it didn't quite capture the attention she expected, and in terms of commercial success, it just wasn't up to par with her previous singles. Katy tried something different, but in a world where the pop landscape was evolving, it wasn't the right fit. To make matters worse, Witness's next big single, Bon Appetit, featuring Migos, caused a bit of a scandal. The collaboration with Migos, who were packed with controversy at the time for their anti-LGBTQ+ views, rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. The backlash was immediate, and it seemed like Katy was making all the wrong moves, trying too hard to reclaim her spot at the top without considering how her actions would be received. And then there was the Bad Blood fiasco. Taylor Swift's 2015 video felt like a direct jab at Katy, and Katy, who was already being dragged into the media for her ongoing feud with Taylor, responded with Swish Swish in 2017. Unfortunately, this felt like a clumsy attempt to rehash a rivalry that had already lost its heat. People saw it as Katy's last-ditch effort to get back in the game, but it only reinforced the image of her as someone clinging to the past instead of evolving. Even with Nicki Minaj on the track, it just couldn't recreate the magic of her earlier hits.
Katy's public image made it really difficult for most people to take this woke album seriously. And after such a negative reaction, Perry fell into a severe depression.
And let's not forget the disaster that was her promotional strategy. The 96-hour live stream event for Witness, where Katy gave fans a peek into her life like a real-life Big Brother show, was supposed to be groundbreaking. Instead, it came across as uncomfortable and overly performative. People were done with her antics. When you're already on the decline, stunts like that do nothing but add to the exhaustion fans are feeling. But the real blow came when Katy's peers kept moving forward. After Swish Swish flopped, Taylor Swift came roaring back with Look What You Made Me Do, which kicked off her Reputation era. That's when things really started to shift in Katy's direction for the worse. It was like the world had decided Taylor was back on top, while Katy was left trying to revive an era that was no longer relevant. Katy's issues didn't stop with bad music or poor promotional choices, though. The Smile album, released in 2020, felt like a product of its time, but not in a good way. She tried to take back control of her narrative with a playful, clownish image on the cover, but the album's themes of resilience didn't resonate the way she hoped. Instead of feeling like a triumphant return, it felt disconnected. She had become a pop star of a different era, and that era had passed. Her style, her sound, and even her approach to being an artist had become increasingly irrelevant. By the time 2020 came around, Katy was dealing with multiple challenges. The pandemic had made it harder to promote the album, and it came at a time when the world was more focused on introspective, genre-blending artists than on the sunny pop anthems that had once made Katy Perry a household name. It felt like she was trapped in a never-ending loop of missteps, unable to find her footing in a world that had already moved on. All of these factors came together to leave Katy with a tarnished reputation. Industry as fast-paced and competitive as music, even the slightest misstep can have devastating consequences. Katy wasn't able to navigate the rapidly changing landscape of pop music, and as a result, she ended up alienating her fan base, mismanaging her career, and falling behind her competitors.
Colorful Mr. Mystery, I'm intrigued for a peek, heard it's
Looking back, we can clearly note that the downfall of Katy was shaped by a combination of factors. A lack of authenticity, desperation to maintain relevance, personal feuds, and a shifting industry that left her behind. Drop your thoughts about Katy's fall in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos on celebs who faced a fall from fame really bad. See you in the next one.